Methodology in the sense that lots of companies, they have a process for product development. So this process is DevOps. It's not a technology. It doesn't have any syntax and semantics, no coding and all that. So DevOps is getting so famous. And where does this emerge from? Initially, if you have an idea about a software development environment, you will understand that everything is code. Whatever we are writing at the end of the day, everything is code. So the ecosystem of software development is built around this code. Okay, so there was always a process in place for these companies to develop a product when they are writing code. So initially it was waterfall model. So there were some drawbacks of this waterfall model. Waterfall model, unless until you finish one phase of your waterfall model, you cannot go to the other phase. For example, if you are developing, that means you're writing code, you cannot go to the next phase. Okay, that is test. Then after testing, you can take it to build. Okay, suppose I'm writing some 1700 lines of code. Okay, unless until my 1700 lines of code are tested, I cannot build it. If I build all the lines of code at once, okay, so if I get some 13 errors, this is called as rollback. Okay, when I have errors, when I want to build and deploy, it is called as rollback. Okay, when I have 13 errors, how would I know what has caused errors? There is no way to backtrace my errors. There is no way that I can actually follow properly. So people have come up with some model called as agile. Agile actually is a total different scenario where, rather writing huge chunks of code, people will write code in something called as modules. Modules are nothing but small chunks of code. For example, I will be having some login module. I'll be having some database module. I'll be having some deployment module. Different modules will be there in my project. All of these modules together become my project. So that is a easy way of doing things. Okay. So these modules are called as sprints. You might be asking me, why am I even talking about agile? Because most of the DevOps development definitely happens in agile. So as a DevOps person, you have to at least have a basic idea of about agile. That's the reason why I'm introducing you to agile. So basic terminology is really important. So I'm going ahead now. You have any concerns, anyone? Okay, I hope not then. So basically, whenever there is a project that is coming to a company, the project manager initiates the process. Okay, he will gather all the requirement specifications from the client. What are these requirement specifications? Suppose I am actually making a website. Okay, I am a client and I want to actually make a website for my actual organization. So what I'll do is I will have my own ideas. My website should look like Amazon.com. My website should look like Yahoo.com. The right pane should be white. Everything I'll be having an idea in my mind. Those are my requirement specifications. Okay, those are my requirement specifications. These requirement specifications are called as user stories. Okay, so as a client, I can give you 30 user stories. I will have lots of things in my mind. I'll gather all of them and I'll give 30 user stories, that the inputs to the project manager. Okay, so it is up to the project manager and the technical architect to decide what has to initially go into development. You have to actually prioritize the list of user stories that you got from your client. These prioritized user stories are called as a product backlog. Okay, product backlog is nothing but list of prioritized user stories. That means you will be only deciding that out of 30, I will only take 23, because out of 30, all the others can be redundant of the other. Redundant means same user story. Okay, So when I have my user stories and product backlog ready, I will actually plan my sprint. Sprint is nothing but a module. Okay, so to plan my sprint, I will decide out of 23 user stories, I will plan 4 sprints. 4 sprints, suppose let us say 25 for our comfort, for our understanding more easily. 25 sprints, sorry, 25 user stories, we will make 5 sprints. 5 user stories per module. Okay, so what will I do on this particular sprints? I have to work on a module, right? So that what will decide, there is something called as a sprint backlog, which would decide what exactly happens per sprint. Okay, so for our understanding, detailed understanding, I'll be showing you my image of this user story sprint backlog. Can you see my screen? Entire screen I'll share once. Okay. Can you see my screen? So this is a user story map. So these are the user stories. I'll show you full screen. This is how I will have the user stories listed. Can you see the sprints planned here? Out of these user stories, they have planned 3 sprints. So can you see the color difference? Gray is sprint 1, like that. So there is a sprint planning that you do per user story, and I want to show you sprint backlog. What exactly are we doing per user story? This is how you will list all the tasks and the number of hours you're going to work per user story. The best advantage of following agile, I'll tell you what. So in a company, in an organization, there is always a team that actually talks to each other. Okay, sorry. Okay, so in an organization, you meet your colleagues, you meet your team members. Do you usually talk about your work? We don't usually talk about our work. We talk about everything over coffee except work. So there is nothing like a knowledge transfer that is happening. So if I am not working in agile, if somebody is going to take my place, for example, I've worked for a company for 5 years. Okay, I got a new job, I'm joining another company now, I'm going to another new place. There is somebody who's taking my place. So he's joined 2 months before the joining date, so that he can understand my work. So if I am not agile, he can never understand what I did. But here, if I am agile, looking at the sprint backlog, he can understand what are the sprints, or in a project, if Sailaja has worked on this project, what are the sprints that she has worked on, and number of hours she has spent, and output, and everything is detailedly documented. That is the best thing about agile. And if you are following an agile process, each and every day in the morning, you will have something called as scrum meetings. Scrum meetings are nothing but stand-up meetings. So here I have 30 participants. I will take all this as a team working under a project. Okay, so all of us will sit together in a room, in a conference room over coffee, and we will talk about how our product development is going. So how Silaja's work is fitting with others' work, and if I'm facing some trouble in my work, I'll talk to other person. So if I'm having some trouble in database, I'll go to the database team and tell that this is the actual challenge I'm facing during connectivity. Everything is talked about in those Scrum meetings. Each and everything about the work is talked about on those meetings. I hope I'm clear till now. So if you are following an agile, in the morning you will go to the office, first thing is scrum meeting, then you will start working on your sprints. Okay, so there is something called as a Jira, Agile Jira. It is called as Jira is the tool most of the organizations use to actually distribute work. Okay, so what work is assigned, which sprint a person is working on, what is the workflow of their work that they can actually see. Everything is managed in Jira. So Agile is still till now. Actually, I've completed introduction to Agile. If you have any concerns, you can actually come ahead and ask me questions. You have any concerns, anyone? Any concerns here?
Hi guys, right? If anyone have any specifications, because I have muted everyone, just remember that, right? Because I have muted, you might not able, if you speak also, you might not hear it. So you have to unmute yourself and then you have to speak. If you have any questions, right, please unmute and listen to that and then maybe ask your questions.
Thank you for the help, Vijay.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope you don't have any questions. Okay, there are lots of people coming from different backgrounds. There are technical people, there are non-technical people, and I myself have trained so many non-technical. In my concern, non-technical means non-IT. Okay, non-IT people. So there are lots of people who are working, non-IT people who are working in DevOps right now, because it is actually configuration and managing, more of that rather programming. That is the reason why people want to settle in DevOps rather going to any other programming language. That is there. So if you're clear with Agile, I'll want to go ahead with DevOps. I'm going actually. Now, if I have a very beautiful process like Agile, why DevOps? Why do I actually want to go to DevOps? What is the need for me to go to DevOps? Agile has a planned process for development. There are two different scenarios in a company: development and deployment. Deployment is when your product is ready. Okay, what you do is you actually show it to your client, consider it as a deployment. So it's a layman term, but it is understood by everyone. That is why I'm telling you like that. For example, if I have a website ready, if I'm able to show my website to the client who has paid me, that is deployment. Okay, so my development is actually followed in Agile. So my sprints are getting ready very fast. Sprint 1 is ready. Here two teams are there. There is development team and there is operations team. Okay, so development is done by dev team and deployment is done by operations team. Okay, so I have a very beautiful planned process of development. My sprints are getting ready fast. So sprint 1 is ready. So ops team is nothing but your system administrator, network engineers, router admins, everyone. Development team includes your developers who code, testers, everybody. Okay, so I give it to the system administrator. Okay, he will actually deploy. My sprint 1 is ready. He tried to deploy sprint 1, fine. My sprint 2 is ready. He's still at deploying sprint 1. My sprint 3 is ready. He's still at deploying sprint 1. My sprint 4 is ready. He's deploying sprint 2. My sprints are ready means my product is ready. What is the use if I'm not able to show what I have, right? So if I'm actually developing fast, I should be able to deploy fast as well, right? So there was lots of complications that arose. So development team was always actually these two people, development and ops people, both have started something called as a blame game. So actually blaming each other. The development team says, I'm developing really fast. Why am I not able to show my product? My client gets angry. That is what dev team says. Ops team can say that they don't even give us the requirement of deployment. They just get me the product. For example, I want to deploy a Java environment, jar file I want to deploy. I need a Java environment with me. They're not specifying any kind of a thing and they're just giving me the sprint. How do I deploy it? They have real challenges that they face every day, the system administrator guys. I would want to definitely ask you guys a question. If you work for a company, some of you at least you work for a company, right? So when do you usually contact a system administrator? Any scenario where you actually called a system administrator? Actually, anyone? When do you usually call a system administrator?
When an environment goes down or something like that.
When an environment goes down, or an email is not working, your server variables are down, your machine physical hardware infrastructure is not working. So here a point to be made: whenever there is trouble, that is when they act, right? Otherwise we are not even bothered about that team. That team is always sitting in a room full of computers and wires and actually waiting for our input. When companies hire system administrators, they hire them in a team. But team doesn't always work with system administrators. The ops team is always considered away from the development. Okay, that caused huge troubles like this. Okay, so that is the reason why people have started thinking about something where they can get these two people together, the dev and the ops team together. So that is DevOps. DevOps is a methodology where there is a collaboration working relationship between development and the operations team, so that the product development can get better. It can be a product development, mobile application development, web-based application development. Each and every person is using DevOps. You talk about data science, DevOps. You talk about Hadoop, DevOps. You talk about Java, Maven, everything is DevOps these days, because that is a policy, that is a kind of environment that everybody wants to give an organization. Correct? Am I clear? Am I clear about DevOps? Why DevOps? So DevOps concentrates both on development and operations. Okay, so the development process inside DevOps happens in Agile. The entire development scenario, we are not changing anything. Actually, it happens in Agile. Agile has been there for a longer period of time. I think 13-14 years Agile is been there. DevOps is going to stay because it is being borrowed from very good methodology, and this methodology is going to stay for a long time. Okay, it's been famous from the past 5 years, but I see that from the past 3 to 4 years, it's been emerging like anything. New tools, new people, lots of technology guys coming into DevOps and all that. So anybody has any inputs, want to talk about anything? Are you guys clear? Are you guys clear? Why DevOps?
Yes.
So how can I achieve DevOps? Okay, how can I achieve DevOps? I want to achieve a methodology. I'm telling that it is making life better, life of product better. How do I achieve DevOps? There is something called as DevOps toolset that helps me achieve that. Why am I using a toolset? So I'll tell you one thing. 15 years ago, if I had to install a Linux machine, okay, Linux was like nothing then. Okay, people used to be actually talking to me strange when I started my career in Linux. Why Linux? You can go for MS SQL or something like that. Now, why did you choose Linux and all that? So that way then, when I wanted to install a Linux machine, it took almost 2 to 3 hours of time. You have to partition it, you have to add RAID, you have to do a lot of things physically, and then install a machine. And then to set up a web server on it, it will take another half an hour. So 3.5 hours per one machine. Okay, so one machine is fine. What if I am a system administrator and I want to set up an infrastructure of 100 machines? Even if I am taking a disk image, copying the disk image on all the machines, it is going to take a lot of time, at least 200 hours of time. Okay, so that is a way lot of time. Now with the emergence of tool like Vagrant, right, the environment can be set up in 20 minutes. So imagine 3.5 hours versus 20 minutes. Which one will you choose? Anyone? 3.5 hours versus 20 minutes. Which one will you choose?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, right? Because, in an organization, what is happening is you want to do everything fast. Nowadays, 3 hours, 3 months is considered to be 1 year in development. That is the kind of zeal with which people are working in an organization. They don't wait for 1 year. They want everything in 3 months. So every 3 months they have a cycle. So 3 months is 1 year for them. So that is how they work. That means they have to actually give the best that is available to the client. So they have choose DevOps because DevOps main goal is to achieve something called as automation. So I told you about the tool called as Vagrant right now, right? To install an environment. I'm going to talk about one more scenario. Okay. For example, I'm a system administrator. Okay. I want to develop a product. Sorry, I'm a system administrator. I want to set up an infrastructure. The infrastructure consists of some 20 machines. Okay, I want to install on all the 20 machines, I want to install some Tomcat server or something. So if I'm doing manually, okay, I have to go to each and every machine, install Tomcat, okay, edit the configuration files, set the environment variables. So each and every machine takes 2 hours. How much time would 20 machines take? 40 hours, right? 40 hours, right? But if with the emergence of tool, there is a tool called as Chef and Puppet. These are tools, okay? So there is a tool called as Chef and Puppet, with which I can do the setup for all the machines in 15 minutes. 20 machines in 15 minutes. What would you choose? What would you choose? Your time to market is becoming very early. Like, previously you had to wait a lot of time to actually configure, to actually set up, to actually build and release. Everything used to take time. With the automation tools that Devops is giving me, I'm able to achieve it in very less time. That is the reason why people are actually running towards DevOps. Any questions here?
Yeah,
Somebody
can you hear
actually,
me?
So
go
Sailaja,
ahead, Naresh. Naresh, who
Yeah,
is it?
my question is like the chef and puppet. When you say so, do they have any prerequisite? Like, can I install on a physical machine where there is not even a single OS is deployed? Like tiny core is nothing is there. So can we use it? Like, do they have any prerequisite? Like some kind of core OS is already installed there.
Yeah, you have to have a core OS.
Okay, so
A
that
Linux
is still.
machine.
Are there any tools to automate that? That is still a manual process, at least installing the base core.
No, there are no tools till now like that. You have to have, it is operating system dependent. Whatever the
Okay,
tools
yeah.
I have, they are all operating system dependent. And when I'm talking about setting up an infrastructure, when I'm talking about controlling something, right, configuring something, I need a base machine. Otherwise, I cannot control. I need to write some code. Okay,
Okay.
otherwise, I cannot control. That is the reason why these are all operating system dependent. Okay.
So first we have to install base machines and then we can do the automation. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think, Shailaja, just to add to that point, I think we require to install the clients as well if we are going ahead with the show. Am I right?
Yes. So most of these are running on Linux. Okay, most of the tools you have to be a Linux person to be a very good DevOps person. I can tell you that. So most of these are running on Linux. And if I'm installing CentOS or Ubuntu, my clients come with me when I install the OS. Okay.
Okay, so is it a multi-OS? Like, can we use this chef on Windows as well?
Yes, you can. You can use Chef on Windows. You can't use Puppet, but you can use Chef on Windows.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There are different tools. Okay, so there are the tools are divided into two types. I can tell you that one is open source tools. There is always a Linux open source community which is working, striving really hard to give us everything for free. There are commercial tools like IBM is there. The same tools, the same work, the IBM tools also do, but the IBM lab costs me around $1,800 per machine. But so I'm not going for any enterprise tools in no ways. I'm always interested in open source, so I to go to the open source. That is my personal choice. Okay, companies differ when they choose the tools. Okay, I hope I'm clear. Any questions? Any more questions?
If possible, could you please list out this Ranjit? If possible, could you please list out the configuration management tools that are
Uh-huh.
open and that are the licensed ones, which are very popular, like Chef, Ansible, Puppet, or something?
Yeah, sure. I'll be talking about each and every module. There are actually lots of things that you need to know about DevOps, but DevOps. So there are 4 modules. Can you hear me, guys?
yes, carry on, Sailaja.
Okay. So first one is source control management. This is even called as version control. The tool that you need to know is in the market. The tool that is famous now is Git. You have to know about it. So I think everybody knows about SVN. SVN is also there, but Git is very famous now. So second one is continuous integration. You need to know about one build tool. This is build tool. Okay, Maven is a build tool, a very famous build tool. You need to know about it, and Jenkins. Continuous deployment. Chef, in which I'm going to discuss configuration management. I'm going to talk about Chef and Puppet. There are lots of other tools like Ansible is there. Salt Stack is also there. Okay. Monitoring. Nagios. Zavix. And you need to know about virtual environment things, and these are Vagrant and Docker. Did I miss something? Yeah, Jira. You need to know about AWS as well. So this is how usually the course is listed by me. Okay, so all these together is one life cycle of your project. Okay, a version control system, a continuous integration tool, a continuous deployment configuration management tool, and monitoring tool, and Docker, Vagrant, Jira, and intro to AWS. Here, when I talk about Git, for example, if I go to IBM, I have Rational ClearCase. Okay, it's an enterprise tool. Okay, so continuous integration. There is Jenkins is what I actually train on. It's open source. There are TeamCity, there is Cruise Control, there is BuildBot. These are all exceptionally priced enterprise tools. Configuration management. When I'm talking about configuration management, Chef and Puppet has two versions of them, open source and enterprise both. So what is the main difference is, for example, if I'm actually using an open source tool, I can control only 63 to 70 machines. But if I'm actually buying a Chef enterprise, he will not limit me the usage of the machines. Okay, I can control thousands of machines. So if I'm a company who is actually having a big infrastructure, I don't mind paying a simple license to Chef. Okay, so Nagios, Zabbix, there are lots of other enterprise tools here, but people only use open source tools for continuous monitoring, even Elasticsearch. And there is something called as an Artifactory. Okay, so that is one tool where you save your end results of a product. Okay, so that is also having its open source version and enterprise version, both are there. Okay, so can I go ahead and talk about each and every module, how it actually gets connected, or you have any questions? You don't have any questions? Raghu has asked me, what is Scrum? Scrum is nothing but a stand-up meeting, okay? It's a meeting where people actually talk about work. All the teams will meet and talk about work and how one's work is fitting with the other. If they have any troubles, if they have any challenges, if they have any thing that each team member needs to know, it's actually discussed in a Scrum meeting. Okay? So now I'm going to discuss about each and every module here. So what is a version control system? Why do I need it? Under which category does Vagrant and Docker come? Vagrant and Docker comes in virtual environment, okay? Building virtual machines, and actually when you're working for a company, your product has to be shipped, right? So when you ship a product, I'll just give you an example. I have something that I built up on my laptop. I have a POC that I made on my laptop. POC is proof of concept. So when I make it on my laptop, it works wonderfully, okay, because I've installed all the dependencies, my laptop is Windows 10, and everything works fine. When I take it and install it on Veer's laptop, it doesn't work, Veer. Why? Why it doesn't work, Veer? My POC, which was working on my machine, doesn't work on Veer's laptop. Why?
Some dependent libraries are missing, or some configuration is
my basically first thing is my image, that is my Windows OS might not be same. Dependencies, configurations may be missing. Everything is changed, right? For the same reason, it is not working. What if there was something where I could take the base image, OS, plus dependencies, plus my product? I keep it on all the 31 people's participants machine, it will work. Correct or not? So that is what Vagrant and Docker gives me. It allows me to ship the product in a very easy manner. Okay? Am I clear? Thanks. So, source control management. Version control system is necessary to track changes in a project. For example, I'm actually talking, I know some people have already an understanding about a version control system, but there can be people who don't know. So for them, I'm explaining, okay? So for example, I have 10 people working in a module on a sprint, okay? So each and every person is writing one file per day. How many files at the end of the day they would be having? Each and every person is writing one file per day. How many files would they be having at the end of the day? So day one, they will have how many files?
10.
10 files. Easy maths, right? 10 files. Day 2, 20 files. Correct? Day 3, 30 files. Like that, the files keep growing, okay? So then on day 3, the technical architect or project manager came to the team and said that you have to edit something on day 1 files. So these people will be having version 1 of day 1 files, right? Correct or not? On day 4, they work on the same day 1 files. So they will have on day 4 version 2 of day 1 files. Sorry. Day 1 files and version 1 of day 3 files. Correct or not? You are able to follow when I write it? So like that, in the previous days, what we used to do is, we used to make folders, okay? So day 1, day 2, day 1 latest, day 2 latest, like that we used to make folders. When our boss came, when our technical project manager came to us and asked us, give me the latest files which are actually going to the build, we were always in a confusion because we had different versions of the files and different folders, and it was so confusing to give the latest version. That is when people have started actually saving these files in something called as a version control systems. CVS was the first version control system that I used, concurrent version control system. Then came SVN, then came Git. Why only Git? I will explain when actually I take training. I'll explain why only we are discussing Git. Git is pretty famous. It doesn't leave any kind of a change behind. It tracks files. It is helped in release management. If my boss comes and asks me, give me latest files, I can give him right away. So that is what I want. Basically, a version control system tracks project files and keeps my team together. My team of 31 here want to work on a project. My version control system gives everyone an opportunity to change the files, save the files, edit the files, everything you can do from the version control system itself. Am I clear? The ecosystem, this is a very important statement. Ecosystem means the entire circling system surrounding the software community is code. Whatever you see, a website, background is code. Then if you see a mobile, background is code. Everything is code. Agreed? Agreed, everyone? So how you manage it is very important. Ashish, Git is open source. It is actually developed by a person who is responsible for Linux operating system. Linus Torvalds is his name, and he is the responsible person for Git version control system. Next, I'm telling you, right? Everything is code. So you save code. Are you seeing code? When you open your mobile, are you seeing the Android code? Are you seeing the OSS code? Are you seeing when you open a web page, are you seeing the HTML code? Are you seeing it? What are you seeing? What exactly are you seeing when you open? So there are different scenarios, public, private. We will discuss later, Ashish. Yes. Okay. Remote repositories, lots of information there on Git. Git is a huge topic by itself. Okay. So what am I seeing? Are you seeing code? When you are playing your Subway Surfer on your mobile, are you seeing code running? Are you seeing something like that? What are you seeing? We are seeing the executable format of the code, right? So if I'm actually seeing a website that is processed either PHP page, .NET page, whatever the language they use, we see a web page, a beautiful web page. We don't know in the background what code is written, correct or not. So we always see an executable format of our code. For example, if I'm actually a Java programmer, I have something called as a build tool. Maven is a build tool for Java. Okay, so I will execute my Java code using Maven. Okay, and after executing the code, my code result, usually my Java files generate .jar files. I will save these jar files, my end results. These are called as artifacts. Satish, yes?
No, I just answered the question asking, will the files be public? I said no to that.
They can be public as well. There are repositories that can be public. Everybody can use free of cost. There are repositories which are private. Both ways, okay? So I thought you were saying no to something else. Okay. So, okay. So when you build a Java file inside Maven, you get a jar file. So what do you do with this file? What do you do with this jar? You save it at one location, okay? You save them in something called as a repository manager, which is the Artifactory is a tool which does that for us, okay? So to actually automate the process, here in Maven, to actually build, I have to give it code manually. Okay, I have to give Git connection, and then I have to give code manually. It will build for me, and then it will actually publish the artifacts to Artifactory. That is what Maven does. But to automate things, why am I going to Jenkins? I won't want to give code manually. I want to actually automate this process. What process? Taking the code from the repository, building the code, and then publishing it to Artifactory. Everything should be automized. There are 29 people here in the training right now. And if I see, for example, each and every person is changing the repository. For every change, Jenkins can actually automatically trigger a build. Satish changes code, build triggers automatically. Ashish changes code, build is triggered automatically. Sailaja changes code, build is triggered automatically. I am not bothered about anything. I don't want to give code manually. So Jenkins automizes the process of taking the code from the repository, building it, deploying it. So that is called as a CI pipeline, that is continuous integration. Continuous integration is a process where each and every change is integrated and tested at the same point. Okay? Am I clear?
Yes, Shailaja. Shailaja, is there any possibility that you will be covering a little bit about the static code analysis and the code coverage as part of continuous integration?
Yes. Code analysis, any which ways, I'll be actually covering SonarQube and Kobachura as well. Okay. there are tools in continuous integration. We can actually scale it. Okay, so a continuous integration process usually includes like this. Okay, so version control, one version control you integrate, one build tool you integrate. Sorry. You integrate one build tool, then you test, you cover, then you deploy. That is how it goes. Okay, so you can scale your continuous integration tool to do a code analysis, coverage, and everything. Okay, that is discussed in detail in the training when I train. Okay, so continuous deployment, I already told you when I actually spoke about a simple example where I had to actually set up 20 machines. So that is the reason why it is called as continuous deployment too. Where does it actually come is here. During deployment, we have different scenarios. Deployment can be taking it to Artifactory and saving it. Second scenario is deploying it onto the cloud, like AWS. Third scenario is installing an environment and deploying. Okay, so this comes into picture when you want to install an environment and deploy code. Okay, so yes, but I am not a Selenium expert, Amrit. So I won't be actually talking about Selenium. Selenium also you can integrate anything, any tool that is helpful for a product life cycle can be integrated in CI/CD pipeline. You call it as a CI/CD pipeline. Okay.
Silas, I have one question here. Like you said, like Kobachura basically for doing the code coverage for Java code, right? If
Correct.
suppose if you want to do the unit testing for SQL files, so at the point of time, is there any framework that you would suggest by which we can run the unit test cases and push it to Sonar?
What is it? SQL?
Yeah, for any SQL, suppose you can do code coverage for using Kobachura and then JUnit framework for Java code, right? In the similar way for SQL files, for SQL Server or whatever it may be. For those things, if I want to run the code coverage and the unit test cases on top of the SQL code, so is there any tools that you would suggest?
So there are tools like TSQL code coverage tools and all that you can integrate. There are frameworks that are available. Okay.
Are you
Hello? Yeah.
hello, are you asking about JDBC connectivity or directly SQL connectivity?
No, it's about the same things like a TSQLT framework. We tried with TSQLT framework and then using the SQL cover generating the results, but we were unable to push to Sonar. So just I was trying like, is there any tool by which open source ultimately? Is there any open source tool by which we can push the TSQLT framework results into the Sonar?
Amrit is saying that Clover is there, but I'm not sure. And one more thing, there are multiple tools available in this particular scenario, not single tool. Okay, nobody can be expert in all. So I am not aware of this Clover at all. Okay. TSQL is what I understand we can use, that framework.
Yeah,
So,
TSQL is for the static code analysis basically. If I want to, yeah, like TSQL with SQL code guard, we can do the static code analysis. But if for code coverage, actually, we were having some problems. So just I thought of it.
Okay. Okay, I'll get back to you on that. Okay, so let me just have a look and then get back to you. The framework you're asking. Okay, Rajni. So when I have lots of, I'm continuing. When I have lots of machines that I want to set up, I can use continuous deployment configuration management tool. Doing it in almost, it's been so helpful. Okay, I have configured the infrastructure. The infrastructure can be actually geometrically distributed. That means 2 machines can be in US, 2 machines can be in Canada. I have no problem as long as I have connectivity. Okay, I can set up the entire infrastructure from my single laptop. Okay, so that is the advantage that Chef and Puppet, Ansible, SaltStack are giving me. Chef and Puppet go hand in hand because both follow same kind of a method. in configuration. Ansible is different. Ansible is actually only one server which controls the entire infrastructure, whereas Chef, Puppet, and SalStack use client-server architecture. So there is a difference. So continuous monitoring. When I have multiple machines that I'm installing in my infrastructure, suppose I have 4 database servers and 3 web servers like that, 4 Tomcat servers and this mail server, all these are there. How would I actually check what machine is working like what? How would I understand the detailed information about each and every machine? In the previous days, to monitor these machines, we used to use actually cron tab. I used to write shell scripting in cron tab, run some Linux commands, get that commands as email from cron tab itself. But it is very hectic to write lots of commands for each and every machine. So here, now there are tools available for monitoring. I can add n number of tools that I want to monitor. I can monitor lots of things, ping status, uptime, load statistics, each and every detail about that machine can be known from my continuous monitoring tools. Okay. Next comes virtual environment. I gave you an example already about Docker and Vagrant. Basically, to ship your applications without any hassle, Docker is used. Docker is getting very famous. Okay, Docker is what is a must for DevOps. Jira is an issue tracking and bug tracking tool. Rather a issue tracking and bug tracking tool, it is more like a project management tool in a company. So in our organization also we use Jira to actually assign tasks, release sprints, everything, understand the flow of the project. Everything can be done from Jira. And nowadays, if you understand, there is nothing like a physical infrastructure. In a company, you are not having your servers. Where are your servers now? Everything is on the cloud. You have everything either on AWS or Azure or Linode or Google Cloud like that. So for that, you need to have an understanding at least about AWS and basic stuff, how to connect, how to do a VNC and all that, VPC, all this stuff you need to know about AWS. Google DevOps plus cloud is an added advantage in a resume always. If you understand DevOps, to work on cloud is very easy. Okay. If you have any questions, you can go ahead. Ansible is agentless, yes. So actually, when I'm actually doing Chef and Puppet, I achieve something called as idempotency. Idempotency means all the machines will have same configurations if I want them to have, and if I don't want any change, I will not get that change. Okay, so idempotency cannot be achieved by Ansible. But Ansible is only famous because Ansible works over SSH. Yeah, Nandita. Yes, Nandita, go ahead. Example for? Okay. So if I'm using a DevOps methodology, if I'm using these tools, my code actually, if I'm setting up an entire infrastructure with these tools, I'll set up version control system. My Jenkins can take the code and I'm not worried. It will build automatically. It will deploy automatically. It will monitor also automatically, do a lot of things. Okay, once set up my entire infrastructure, it can do the same thing n number of times. I'm not bothered about building, monitoring the builds. Everything is done by my tools itself. Complete flow is you have a version control system, you have a build tool, you have a coverage tool, and then you decide how you deploy.
Sailija, do you recommend, right? Or do you have any place or any link where we can or they can practice it, right? So that's where, right? Because so after this, right, maybe we can go to this link and say that, hey, this is the place, right? We can just see the high level flow of something on that.
Okay, there is a site called as dzone. Okay, dzone, I'll write it. It's a very good site for DevOps. You can get everything there. New tools, configurations, and everything is written there. And there is a person called as Denizan. You need to follow him on LinkedIn. He has a blog. He writes everything he practices. So that is how I actually update myself, always reading. You can also try that.
Do you recommend any other links, right? So because on a daily update, that's what most of the people are like, the upgrade themselves, right? So any other apart from this, I know this one D zone and then you should do that. So any other you recommend? Means I'm talking about
Sites.
any sites, right? Like for example,
DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is one site that I follow. DigitalOcean.
Okay, fine.
DigitalOcean is good. Okay.
I hope Nandita gets the answer, right? Because I think, right, basically, yes, maybe, right, yes, by saying, right, but again, right, going through these links and going through this, right, at least we get the basic inputs and the flow so that anyone can test it right over there.
I have one question.
Who is
Can
it?
you hear me? Naresh.
Go ahead, Naresh.
Yeah. When we say the term continuous delivery, we are always shipping the executable code. So that is logic, but not the data. So where does this data reside, and how do you handle the upgrades to the data? Let's for each version, let's say I add new table or new column is added. But when I'm doing the continuous delivery, I'm only worried about how to deliver my job.
Correct. So actually, that is the reason why we are using Artifactory or a Nexus repository, where you will have different details about your builds and build numbers, how many builds are you doing, where you are saving your data. Everything is detailedly written in this tools. Okay, Artifactory and Nexus both help in that. Okay.
So Sailaja, Artifactory is nothing but JFrog, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes, it is. So .NET projects are supported. Okay, I have done .NET builds in Jenkins, Srinivas. So Puppet supports only Linux. Okay, so Chef can support your .NET, Chef and Docker. It can work. Okay. Docker was basically built for Linux, but now you have Docker for Windows. You have to download something called as boot to Docker, which gives you an environment of Linux on Windows, nothing else. Idempotency or idempotency idempotency. It's So everyone I can answer, right? Sorry, 1 minute. What is idempotency is what Amrit wants to know. Idempotency is, I'll tell you, I have 10 machines in my infrastructure. If I'm configuring it with usually in the previous days, what we used to do is we used to write shell scripting to do multiple SSH and then configure the machines. We used to do remotely. Actually, it worked. Okay. So rather going to each and every machine, we used to go to each and every machine and then actually do it. But suppose I have 10 machines. Okay. My 10 machines are up to date. But what happens is my shell scripting runs every day. So I have to do the same task every day, even if it is not needed. My shell script would run and update my machine, okay, which is not needed, okay, which is a waste of time. Maybe in that time, my machine can be used for something else. So using Chef and Puppet, for example, if I'm configuring 10 machines, my 2 machines are up to date and my 8 machines have to be updated. My 2 machines will not work. They'll stay idle, okay. My 8 machines will work because they have work. Otherwise, sorry, this is called as idempotency. Whenever there is work, they will actually work. Otherwise, they'll stay idle. Whenever there is an update, They will work on themselves. Otherwise, they'll stay idle. It is called as idempotency. Idempotency is a very important factor that is achieved by these configuration management tools. Both Chef and Puppet can achieve them. Okay, idempotency. So it is a very important interview question. Why not SSH? Why are you using Chef and Puppet? So first is idempotency. Okay. In Ansible, what happens is idempotency can be achieved in client-server architecture. My server will be there. My clients will take the configuration and apply on themselves. Okay. So in Ansible, I have only it's agentless configuration. I'll have one server. One server will be sitting. It will be firing commands over SSH. It will communicate over SSH and do configurations. Okay. That is the reason why I cannot achieve idempotency. There is no control. Okay. That's why. Am I clear, Amrit?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody has any question?
Yes, Shailaja, so in configuration management, what is the exact difference between the infrastructure and the provisioning?
Provisioning. Infrastructure and provisioning. So infrastructure is your machines in your company. Okay. Infrastructure can be machines in your company. Provisioning is, for example, you have 10 machines installed with Ubuntu, 10 machines installed with CentOS, 10 machines with the Red Hat. Okay. Provisioning is configuring them. Okay. I want to install SSH on all of this. If you understand, there is a difference. For Red Hat, if you want to provision, it is SSHD. If you want to provision in Ubuntu, it is SSH. There is difference between the services that you install on different kinds of operating systems in Linux. How do you understand the difference and then install your specific software? My configuration management tools can achieve it. Chef and Puppet both can achieve it. Okay. Provisioning is nothing but configuring the environment whatever you want. For example, you have PHP already installed. 2.3.2 version is there. You want to update it to 4. Okay, so you can write a small set of code so that it will provision your environment, the entire environment, not single machine. I'm talking about multiple machines with different infrastructures, different operating systems installed. Am I clear?
Yeah. So let me take the question in a different way. Like, if suppose I have a not a on-premises instances, I'm talking about cloud something. Okay.
Cloud. Okay.
So let's assume that I would like to use Chef or Ansible, whatever it may be, to spin up an instance and install an operating system on top of that instance, and then install some app servers or something like Tomcat or IAS or something. So for these, what is the steps called as infrastructure? What steps called as a provisioning, basically?
Okay. So I'll give you a best example. Vagrant is there, right? Vagrant does two things. One is installing the infrastructure. Second is provisioning. Installing the infrastructure is setting up the environment, installing your base operating system or something like that. Provisioning is editing that kind of configuration that you have installed. Am I clear? Can anyone help me? Automation of sample.NET project. I don't know. Am I clear, Rajneet?
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm taking a tool called as Vagrant, he's talking about cloud. Cloud. There is different kind of understanding of the cloud. Okay. There are cloud formation templates. There are different services that cloud gives me, which actually helps me doing infrastructure plus provisioning both from their end. But I don't want to explain from that scenario. I wanted to explain from the scenario of Vagrant. When I take a tool called as Vagrant, Vagrant is a tool which installs the operating system, then provisions it with the help of tools. Okay, what tools it uses for provisioning? Either we can use Chef or Puppet. Simple example I'll give you. So initially, with the Vagrant, you can install a base operating system, which is a Linux operating system. Suppose Ubuntu. Okay. So on that operating system, you want to actually install some Apache web server. Okay. So you write a provisioning to actually do it. It's not one machine that you're doing. Even if you're using Vagrant, you can do it for n number of machines inside your infrastructure at once. Okay. Provisioning is usually configuring your environment to your required need. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Thanks.
So in the basically, if you are in the artifactories, basically, so when you are comparing with the Nexus with JFrog, basically in the Nexus you have a snapshots and releases by which you can auto promote the code to the higher environments, basically from snapshots.
Correct.
One a day or something like that, a particular snapshot. In a similar way, in Artifactory, is there any such kind of repository that is available? Because it's a generic repository is available, but I don't see anything like a snapshots or releases concepts in Artifactory.
You have used enterprise version, did you?
Not really. It's
If you use the enterprise version, they have. So I don't usually use the enterprise version, but Artifactory can be used for that as well. If you buy enterprise version, it will help you the same way as Nexus is helping us. If you use an open source version, lots of things are limited. They give you a normal local repository type and for monitoring your artifacts and all that, nothing else. Publishing and all that, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So if nobody has questions, I would want to exit. If you have questions, please talk.
I have one more last question. So in the Nexus, if suppose we are talking about snapshots and releases, there is a possibility that you can go ahead and set up the purging methodology. But if suppose I have created my own repository, okay, instead of maintaining snapshots or releases, how to maintain the purging methodology at the repository level, or how to maintain the purging methodology inside the repository at the folder level? My question clear?
D-Zone is a site, okay? The name of the person you need to actually follow is Denny Zhang in LinkedIn. He's from LinkedIn, okay? He's a very good DevOps enthusiast. He does lots of things, new things that nobody does in the market. If there is something new that is available, he is the first person to try and write it in his blog. So that is how I've been actually following from a long time. So his name is Denny Zhang. So one day I want to definitely become like him. You can say that he's my role model or something.
Okay.
So
yeah, nice to hear, Sailaja. I think, right, see, if anyone have any specific questions, you can reach out to Sailaja. That's not a problem. So Sailaja.
This is too technical. It will take some time, Rajneet. Yeah. We can talk if you want later. Vijay, you can actually ask him to call me or something. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. What I can do now is I'll share this video to all the group members, right, who are enrolled today. So that, right, I can give you your maybe mail IDs. So that I will prefer to give you a mail ID so that they can reach you. And then if it's whoever is interested, right, they can reach you on your mail ID, and then they can, after that, you can exchange your contacts.
Sure, Vijay. Okay.
I think that's
so. Rajneet,
thanks a lot, Sailaja. Other than that, Vijay, is there any generic Skype or WhatsApp or something where we can post the questions and then have a kind of general discussion? Is there anything currently?
No, that's a long pending thing. See, because as you know, right, this particular IoT labs group I'm running for different technologies. So I cannot make a specific group of like a DevOps, IoT, machine learning. So I cannot do that, right, because it will become a generic. So there's a long pending thing people are asking, and then the only challenge to me, right, because this particular DevOps, right, I can see 20 to 30 people today. One thing we can do immediately, right, if Sailaja is also fine taking that, right, maybe with this 20, 30 or whatever it is, right, I can create a group like Devops group, so that right, very enthusiastic, so that we can have that group started today itself only, if Silas is okay with that. So that and then right, we can just take that any questions, right? Just it will be recorded, right? If any specific questions, right, we can go back and then look into that. I think that's what my suggestion is.
Okay. Okay, but when it comes to a WhatsApp group, everybody these days creates a WhatsApp group.
Yes.
They actually post a lot of messages which are useless. So that's the
Yeah,
reason
you are right.
I
You are
don't
absolutely
actually
right.
answer.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a part of a group. Technically it's fine. If it's useless, I will exit. That is what I want to tell you, because people nowadays have everything to share on WhatsApp. Okay,
Yeah.
I have a big problem with that.
Especially the political messages.
It's not about that. It's not about that. Whatever it is related to the subject, that is well and good. If not, I think the admin remove that person. If that is the